In the deepest archives of 1,000 worlds, buried beneath layers of digital dust and forgotten languages, lies a single recurring message. It appears in the sacred texts of the Vorth Empire, carved into the obsidian monuments of the Kilari Confederacy, and whispered in the dying breaths of the last Zephyrian oracle. Always the same warning, always dismissed as myth, always ignored by those who thought themselves the apex of galactic civilization. When the young species with 2 arms and endless hunger awakens, when they step beyond their blue cradle and reach for distant stars, remember this truth: they are not prey, they are not equals, they are the storm that reshapes reality itself. The ancient elders spoke truly: these humans are invincible, though none will believe until the very moment their fleets darken every sky. For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council laughed at these words. They pointed to their superior technology, their ancient wisdom, their perfectly ordered societies. Humans were just another primitive species, barely worth monitoring, certainly not worth fearing. They were wrong. And, now, as emergency broadcasts scream across the galaxy and mighty armadas burn in the void, those forgotten warnings finally make sense. But, understanding the truth and surviving it are two very different things. The first sign should have been the silence. Commander Vexhai of the Zorth Intelligence Division noticed it during his routine monitoring shift aboard the orbital station Kareth Prime. For 17 cycles, his long-range sensors had tracked the steady expansion of the small blue world's inhabitants as they spread across their solar system. The humans, as they called themselves, had established colonies on their moon, mining operations on the red planet they named Mars, and research outposts throughout their system. Their progress was unremarkable by galactic standards, slow, inefficient, riddled with the kind of political conflicts that marked most primitive species. But, 3 days ago, something changed. The constant chatter of human communications, their primitive radio waves, digital transmissions, and quantum experiments simply stopped. Not reduced. Not redirected. Stopped. Sensor technician Kulvar, Vexhai called across the monitoring station, his forearms dancing across holographic controls. Run another deep scan of Sol system. Something's wrong with our equipment. The young technician, her chitinous hide still bearing the bright green patterns of recent molting, hunched over her instruments. Her species, the Velka, were renowned across the galaxy for their precision and attention to detail. If anyone could find a technical malfunction, it would be her. Sir, I've run 17 diagnostic cycles. Our equipment is functioning at optimal parameters. The silence is real. Kulvar's voice carried a tremor that Vexhai had never heard before. In 3 years of service, she had never shown fear. Vexhai's secondary arms tapped nervously against his command throne while his primary hands pulled up historical data on human expansion. The species had been flagged as minimal threat, high curiosity factor when they first achieved spaceflight 57 of their years ago. Their technology was crude but showed promise. Their society was fractured but demonstrated remarkable adaptability. Most importantly, they had shown no signs of developing faster than light travel, which meant they posed no immediate threat to the greater galactic community. The Galactic Council had classified them as a developing civilization and instituted the standard non-interference protocols. No contact until they achieved interstellar capability on their own. It was a policy that had worked for thousands of years across millions of species. Pull up the archive transmissions from the last 7 days, Vexhai ordered. I want to see exactly when the silence began. The main display shimmered and resolved into a timeline of human communications. For decades, the pattern had been consistent: millions of signals bouncing between their planet and their various off-world installations. Military communications, civilian broadcasts, scientific data streams, even their primitive entertainment transmissions. The volume and complexity had grown steadily as their technology improved and their population expanded throughout their system. Then, precisely 73 hours, 16 minutes, and 42 seconds ago, it all stopped. Not gradually. Not in sections. Every single transmission cut off simultaneously across the entire solar system, as if someone had thrown a switch that controlled every human communication device in existence. Kulvar, what's the probability of simultaneous system-wide communication failure? The technician's mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed the calculation. Given the redundancy in their networks and the geographic distribution of their infrastructure, the probability approaches zero, sir. Even a stellar event like a massive solar flare couldn't cause universal shutdown across their entire system. Vexai felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. In his 40 years of monitoring primitive species, he had never seen anything like this. Species sometimes went silent due to natural disasters, wars, or technological catastrophes, but never with such precision, never so completely. What about their physical presence? Are their ships and stations still there? Yes, sir. All orbital installations appear intact. Their ships are still in their documented positions. We're detecting normal energy signatures from their major population centers. Whatever caused the communication blackout didn't destroy their infrastructure. The commander's thoughts raced through possibilities. A new form of electromagnetic warfare? A breakthrough in their primitive quantum technology that accidentally interfered with their own signals? Some kind of coordinated shutdown in response to an external threat they had detected? That last thought made his blood run cold. Kulvar, scan for any unusual activity in the Sol system. Check for gravitational anomalies, energy spikes, anything that might indicate the presence of unregistered ships. For several long minutes, the only sound in the monitoring station was the soft hum of advanced sensor arrays reaching across light-years of space. The Zorth had perfected long-range surveillance technology over millennia of expansion across the galaxy. Their sensors could detect a single ship from 1,000 light-years away, could analyze the molecular composition of a planet's atmosphere from across the galactic arm. What they found in the Sol system should have been impossible. Sir, Kulvar's voice was barely above a whisper. I'm detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the system. Not natural phenomena. These are artificial constructs, ships, stations, structures of some kind. But, sir, the technology readings. What about them? They don't match any known configuration in our databases. The energy signatures are unlike anything in recorded galactic history. And, sir, the scale. She paused, running the calculations again. Sir, there are thousands of them. Massive structures. Some of them appear to be larger than our dreadnoughts. Vexai's forearms moved frantically across his controls, pulling up tactical displays and cross-referencing the sensor data with every known ship design in the galactic database. The Zorth Confederation maintained the most comprehensive records of military technology in known space. Their database included detailed specifications for ships from over 10,000 different species, from tiny scout vessels to the massive world ships of the ancient progenitor races. Nothing matched what they were seeing in human space. This has to be an invasion force, Vexai muttered, his mind racing through the implications. Someone's moved against the humans. But, who? And, why haven't we detected any approaching fleets? The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the monitoring station's archives, an automated alert suddenly activated. It was an old system, so ancient that most technicians forgot it existed. The Alert Protocol 77 Omega had been installed in every Zorth facility over 3,000 years ago, programmed to activate if specific conditions were ever met. The alert had never triggered before. Kulvar stared at her console as streams of archaic text scrolled across her screen. Sir, I'm receiving an automated message from the Central Archives. It's marked as Priority Absolute, Classification Mythological Historical. Mythological Historical? I've never seen that classification. Neither have I, sir. The message appears to be quoting from ancient texts. Pre-Confederation records from over 3 millennia ago. Her voice grew steadier as she read from the display. It says, Alert conditions met for species classification human Solterra. Recommend immediate consultation of archived warnings, section Omega 77. Primary reference, Prophecies of the Ancient Elders, subsection, The Awakening Storm. Vexai had studied galactic history extensively during his military training, but he had never heard of any ancient elder prophecies. The classification system itself was archaic, dating back to the earliest days of galactic civilization when record-keeping was more art than science. Transfer everything to my personal terminal. I want to review these archives immediately. As Kulvar transmitted the data, Vex-High accessed his command codes and opened a priority channel to Zorth High Command. Whatever was happening in human space, it was clearly beyond his authority to handle alone. The face of Admiral Gorthvan appeared on his private communications screen. The old warrior's scarred features and battle-tested cybernetic implants spoke of decades of service in the Confederation's expansion wars. Commander Vex-High. This had better be important. I'm in the middle of fleet maneuvers near the Kekari border. Admiral, we have a situation in the Sol system. The humans have gone completely silent, and we're detecting massive unknown technology in their space. I need permission to break monitoring protocols and investigate directly. The Admiral's expression shifted from irritation to interest. Unknown technology? Explain. Vex-High quickly summarized the sensor readings and the mysterious archive alert. As he spoke, he watched the Admiral's face grow increasingly grim. Send me everything immediately, Gorthvan ordered. I'm recalling the Third Fleet from Border Patrol. If someone's moving against a protected species in our monitoring zone, they're going to answer to the full might of the Confederation. The transmission ended, leaving Vex-High alone with his growing sense of unease. He pulled up the ancient archives that the automated system had referenced, scrolling through documents so old they were written in dialects that required computer translation. Most of it appeared to be standard mythological content, creation stories, heroic epics, religious prophecies. The kind of material that primitive species produced before they developed scientific understanding of the universe. But, as he delved deeper into the files, certain phrases began to repeat across multiple sources. The young species with endless hunger. 2 arms and the fury of stars. When they wake, the galaxy trembles. None believe until the fleets burn. The repetition was troubling enough, but what disturbed Vex-High even more was the consistency of the descriptions across completely unrelated civilizations. The Kalari had no contact with the Vorth during their mythological period. The Zephyrians had developed their oral traditions in isolation from any other species. Yet all of them contained nearly identical warnings about a species that matched humanity's physical description. 2 arms. Bipedal. From a blue world. Driven by insatiable curiosity and impossible determination. Ancient elders spoke the truth: humans were invincible. As Vex-High read deeper into the archives, he began to understand why the automated alert had triggered. According to the ancient texts, the awakening of humanity would be marked by specific signs. The sudden mastery of technologies beyond their apparent capability. The appearance of vast fleets where none had existed before. The silence that preceded the storm. All of which perfectly described what they were observing in Sol System. His hands trembled as he reached the final entries in the archive. These were not warnings or prophecies, they were instructions. Emergency protocols established by civilizations that had vanished into history so long ago that most species considered them myths. When the conditions are met, the text read, when the signs align and the young species awakens, do not investigate. Do not approach. Do not engage. Signal all vessels to maintain maximum distance. The ancient elders spoke truly, they cannot be stopped, only survived. Behind him, Kulvar's voice cut through his growing dread. Sir, Admiral Gorthvan is transmitting on emergency frequencies. He says the Third Fleet is 2 hours out from Sol System, and he's demanding a real-time sensor link. Vex-High stared at the ancient warnings on his screen, then at the tactical display showing hundreds of unknown ships moving through human space with impossible coordination. Every instinct he had developed through 4 decades of military service told him that approaching Sol System right now would be a mistake of catastrophic proportions. But orders were orders, and the Admiral had never been known for his patience with subordinates who second-guessed his decisions. Establish the link, Vex-High commanded, even as he copied the ancient archive files to his personal storage. And, Kulvar? Yes, sir? Start monitoring all emergency frequencies across the galaxy. Something tells me we're about to witness something that will change everything we thought we knew about the universe. As the sensor link established connection with the approaching Third Fleet, Vex-High could only hope that Admiral Gorthvan would listen to ancient wisdom. But he had a sinking feeling that 3,000 years of galactic superiority had made the Confederation too proud to believe in old stories, even when those stories were about to become terrifying reality. Admiral Gorthvan's flagship, the Sword of Confederation, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Sol System with the precision that marked 3 centuries of Zorth military excellence. Around the massive dreadnought, 47 ships of the Third Fleet materialized in perfect formation, their weapons powered and shields raised in standard combat configuration. The Admiral stood on his command bridge, his scarred features illuminated by the tactical displays that showed the impossible truth of what Commander Vexai had reported. Where there should have been a handful of primitive human vessels, the sensors revealed thousands of structures moving through space with coordination that would have impressed even the most advanced galactic civilizations. Tactical assessment, Gorthvan ordered, his voice carrying the authority of countless battles. Commander Jextal, his chief tactical officer, manipulated the holographic displays with 4 precisely controlled manipulator arms. Admiral, the energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. These ships appear to be using propulsion systems that operate on principles we don't recognize. No visible exhaust signatures, no gravitational displacement patterns that match known drive technologies. What about weapons signatures? That's where it gets truly disturbing, sir. Every single vessel is armed, but we can't identify the weapon systems. The energy patterns suggest technologies that shouldn't be possible given the human's previous level of development. Admiral Gorthvan had fought in 17 major conflicts during his long career. He had faced the berserker fleets of the Korth Empire, survived the chaos of the Veil Wars, and personally led the assault that broke the Yenari Rebellion. In all that time, he had never encountered technology that his species couldn't at least identify. Time to develop these capabilities? Based on our last detailed assessment of human technology, sir, they would need approximately 300 standard years to develop anything approaching this level of sophistication. That assessment was completed less than 2 years ago. The Admiral's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on the tactical display. Send a message to Confederation High Command. Priority Alpha. We need a full analysis team and additional fleet assets. This situation is far beyond our initial assessment. Sir, interrupted Navigation Officer Tulare, we're receiving a transmission from the largest human structure. It's on standard diplomatic frequencies, using proper galactic communication protocols. This information hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The humans weren't supposed to know about standard galactic communication protocols. They weren't supposed to have the technology to transmit on those frequencies. According to every assessment in the Confederation files, they were still decades away from even discovering the mathematical principles that made galactic communication possible. Put it through, the Admiral ordered. The main display shifted, and, for the first time in recorded galactic history, a human face appeared on the bridge of a Confederation warship. The creature was exactly as described in the ancient archives, bipedal, 2 arms, primitive features softened by obvious intelligence. But what struck every being on the bridge was not the alien appearance, but the absolute confidence in those strange, forward-facing eyes. Greetings, the human said, speaking in perfect galactic standard. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've been expecting your arrival. The silence on the bridge was absolute. Gorthvan's long military career had taught him to maintain composure in any situation, but this was testing those limits. I am Admiral Gorthvan of the Zorth Confederation Third Fleet. You are in violation of established monitoring protocols. By what authority do you claim knowledge of our presence? The human's expression didn't change, but something in those eyes suggested she was amused by the question. Admiral, we've been aware of your monitoring station at Kareth Prime for the past 18 months. We've been tracking your long-range surveillance of our system for over 2 years. As for authority. She paused, and, when she continued, her voice carried the kind of certainty that made experienced warriors nervous. We claim no authority, Admiral. We simply state facts. Commander Jextal leaned close to the Admiral and whispered, Sir, our monitoring station uses technology that should be undetectable by any species below level 7 on the advancement scale. The humans were classified as level 2. The classifications were wrong, Admiral Gorthvan said quietly, then addressed the human directly. Admiral Chen, I need to understand what has happened here. Our sensors indicate massive technological advancement in an impossibly short time frame. What has happened, Admiral, is that humanity has remembered who we are. The humans' words were simple, but they carried undertones that made the bridge crew exchange nervous glances. For the past century, we've been playing the role you expected us to play. We've pretended to struggle with technologies we mastered decades ago. We've maintained the illusion of a fractured, primitive species because the alternative was undesirable. Undesirable for whom? For everyone, Admiral. Including us. Admiral Chen moved, and the camera followed her as she walked to what appeared to be a viewing port. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was visible, and it was massive. The scale suggested a vessel larger than anything the Confederation had ever constructed. You see, Admiral, we've spent considerable effort studying your civilization and others like it. We've learned your history, your capabilities, your limitations. And we've realized that revealing our true nature too early would have been problematic. Admiral Gorthvan felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's environmental systems. Your true nature? We are what your ancient texts warned about, Admiral. We are the species that grows beyond limits, that adapts beyond possibility, that refuses to accept the word impossible as anything more than a challenge to overcome. The human turned back to face the camera, and now her expression was genuinely serious. Your ancestors knew this. They tried to warn you. But 3,000 years of galactic dominance made your people forget that warnings exist for a reason. On the tactical display, Commander Jextal watched in amazement as more human ships appeared throughout the system. Not arriving from hyperspace, simply materializing from what appeared to be empty space. Admiral, he whispered urgently, they're using stealth technology beyond our ability to detect. These ships have been here all along. We just couldn't see them. The human admiral apparently heard the whispered comment. Your sensor technology is impressive, Commander, but it operates on principles that assume certain limitations in materials science and energy manipulation. We stopped accepting those limitations some time ago. How long? Admiral Gorthvan asked. How long have you been capable of this level of technology? That's a complex question, Admiral. When did we first develop faster-than-light travel? 47 years ago. When did we first achieve matter-energy conversion? 33 years ago. When did we first develop consciousness transfer technology? 28 years ago. When did we first unlock the mathematical principles governing dimensional manipulation? 15 years ago. Each revelation hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. These weren't just advanced technologies, they were breakthrough concepts that most galactic civilizations never achieved. The Confederation itself had been working on consciousness transfer technology for over a millennium without success. But, Admiral, the human continued, those are just tools. The real question is, when did we realize what we truly were? The answer to that is much more recent. 7 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days ago. What happened 7 months ago? We broke the code, Admiral. We finally decrypted the messages left by the ancient elders. The warnings that every galactic civilization received but chose to ignore. The detailed instructions about what to do when humanity awakened. Admiral Chen's expression grew almost sympathetic. They left very specific guidance about how to survive contact with us, Admiral. Did your people not preserve those instructions? Commander Jextal was frantically searching through the ship's database. Admiral, I'm finding references to ancient archives, but most of them are classified as mythological material. Historical accuracy ratings are listed as unreliable. The ancient elders weren't mythological, Commander, the human said, apparently monitoring their communications with ease. They were the species that came before you. The ones who established the basic frameworks of galactic civilization before they transcended physical existence. They left detailed records because they recognized what humanity would become. And, what is that? Admiral Gorthvan asked, though he was beginning to fear the answer. The next step, Admiral. The bridge between what your people think is possible and what actually exists beyond the boundaries of normal spacetime. The human admiral gestured, and her image was replaced by a tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. Your civilizations have spent millions of years spreading across the galaxy, establishing territories, fighting wars over resources and space. You've created an amazing tapestry of different cultures and technologies. But you've all remained bound by the same fundamental limitations. The galactic display shifted, showing energy patterns and structures that the Confederation sensors couldn't detect from their current position. We exist beyond those limitations now, Admiral. We've moved past the need for traditional resources, traditional space, traditional time. What you're seeing in this system isn't an invasion force or a military buildup. It's simply humanity expressing our nature without the constraints we've accepted for the past century. What constraints? The constraint of appearing harmless. The constraint of developing at a pace that wouldn't alarm galactic civilization. The constraint of pretending that we needed your approval or permission to exist. The human's voice grew harder. Those constraints became burdensome. Admiral Gorthvan realized that his hands were shaking. In 40 years of military service, he had never felt this kind of fundamental uncertainty about his own capabilities and the capabilities of his civilization. What are your intentions toward the galactic community? That depends entirely on the galactic community's intentions toward us, Admiral. We have no interest in conquest, no need for territory or resources that require taking anything from others. But we also have no interest in hiding anymore, and we will not accept attempts to limit our development or contain our expansion. And if we try to contain you? The human smile was not reassuring. Admiral, 3 days ago, we sent exploration fleets to 47 different galaxies. They established permanent research stations and began detailed surveys of local spacetime conditions. These operations were completed in approximately 6 hours using technology that operates on principles your best scientists would consider fantasy. The bridge crew exchanged looks of pure shock. Intergalactic travel was theoretical at best for even the most advanced Confederation scientists. The energy requirements alone should have been beyond any conceivable technology. We didn't tell you this to threaten you, Admiral. We told you this so you understand the reality of the situation. Containing humanity is not possible. Controlling our development is not possible. Fighting us would be. She paused. Well, your own ancient texts describe what happens when someone tries to fight an awakened humanity. Commander Jextal had found the relevant archives. Admiral, he said quietly, according to these ancient texts, civilizations that attempted military action against awakened humans suffered what the records describe as absolute strategic dissolution. Every fleet, every world, every trace of their civilization simply disappeared. Not destroyed, Admiral Chen clarified. Relocated. We found them eventually, transferred to a carefully prepared galaxy designed to support their specific biological and cultural needs. Very nice accommodations, actually. No restrictions on their development, plenty of resources, complete freedom to grow as a civilization. They just couldn't remain in this galaxy after choosing violence. The implications of this statement settled over the bridge like a suffocating blanket. The humans weren't just claiming technological superiority, they were claiming the ability to relocate entire civilizations across intergalactic distances. You're saying you've done this before? We're saying the ancient elders did this before, Admiral. We're their inheritors. Their intended replacements in this galaxy. The bridge between the civilization you know and the possibilities that exist beyond current understanding. The human admiral looked directly at the camera. The question now, Admiral, is whether the current galactic civilizations want to learn about those possibilities, or whether they want to force us to make some very difficult decisions. Admiral Gorthvan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of galactic history settling on his shoulders. When he opened them, he looked directly at the human face on his screen. Admiral Chen, I need to speak with my superiors. This situation is far beyond my authority to handle. Of course, Admiral. But, please understand, the conversation we're having right now is being monitored by representatives of every major galactic civilization. The Kalari High Council, the Vorth Parliament, the Yenari Assembly, the Korth Warchiefs, and 43 other governing bodies are all receiving real-time data about this exchange. How is that possible? Because we wanted them to know, Admiral. The time for hiding is over. The time for pretending to be something we're not is over. Humanity is taking its place in the galaxy, and everyone gets to decide how they want that to happen. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Sword of Confederation in absolute silence. Admiral Gorthvan stared at the empty display for a long moment before turning to his communications officer. Send an immediate message to High Command. Priority Alpha Omega. Tell them. He paused, struggling to find words for what he had just witnessed. Tell them that the ancient warnings were true. Tell them that humanity has awakened. And tell them that we need guidance from the highest levels of government immediately. As emergency transmissions began flooding galactic communication networks, Admiral Gorthvan could only hope that somewhere in the vast archives of galactic civilization, someone had preserved the ancient elders' instructions for survival. Because humanity was no longer pretending to be harmless. The Emergency Council of Galactic Civilizations convened for the first time in 800 years in the ancient chambers of Nexus Prime, a massive space station positioned at the exact gravitational center of the galaxy. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in person, while hundreds more participated through quantum-link communication from their respective homeworlds. High Chancellor Mordun of the Kalari Confederacy stood at the center of the circular chamber, his crystalline form reflecting the light from dozens of different star systems represented in the chamber's ceiling display. Around him, the most powerful beings in known space struggled to process what they had learned in the past 72 hours. The situation reports are consistent across all monitoring stations, Mordun announced, his voice carrying the harmonic frequencies that marked his species' communication. Humanity has revealed technological capabilities that exceed our most advanced projections by several orders of magnitude. More concerning, they claim inheritance from the ancient elders. War Master Kekthul of the Korth Empire slammed one of his 6 fists against the metallic table before him. The massive warrior's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Claims mean nothing. These soft-bodied weaklings think they can intimidate the greatest military force in galactic history? Let them face the full might of our battle fleets. With respect, War Master, interrupted Supreme Logician Felnara of the Vorth Parliament, initial tactical analysis suggests that conventional military force may not be applicable to this situation. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that operate outside known physical laws. No species operates outside physical laws, Kekthul growled. Physics is physics. Energy is energy. Weapons destroy, shields protect, and superior numbers win battles. These are universal constants. Are they? The voice came from the chamber's main communication array, transmitted from the Yenari assembly on the far side of the galaxy. Because according to our deep archive analysis, the ancient elders operated on principles that our science could never explain. If the humans have truly inherited their knowledge. High Chancellor Mordun raised one crystalline arm for silence. The question before this council is not whether we believe human claims. The question is how we respond to demonstrated capabilities. In the past 72 hours, we have confirmed the following facts. The chamber's central display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of known space. Red markers began appearing at locations throughout the galaxy. Human exploration vessels have appeared in 47 different star systems simultaneously. Not traveling to these locations, appearing. No hyperspace distortions, no gravitational anomalies, no energy signatures consistent with any known FTL technology. More red markers appeared, this time beyond the galactic rim. Human ships have been detected in 47 different galaxies beyond our local cluster. Again, simultaneous appearances with no detectable travel signatures. The display shifted to show energy readings that defied every known scientific principle. Human installations in Sol system are consuming and producing energy at levels that should require the complete mass energy conversion of several star systems. However, all stars in Sol system show normal energy output. They are drawing power from sources we cannot identify using methods we cannot understand. Silence filled the chamber as the implications settled over the assembled representatives. Finally, Ancient One Valtheri of the Zephyrian Oracle ship spoke, her voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of accumulated wisdom. I have spent the past 3 days in deep communion with the preserved consciousness fragments of our most ancient seers. The warnings exist, honored representatives. They are not mythology. The ancient elders left detailed instructions for this exact scenario. Instructions for what? War Master Kekthul demanded. For survival, Veltheri replied simply. The ancient elders knew that eventually, the inheritor species would awaken. They knew what would happen when a species broke through the barriers that limit normal evolution. They experienced it themselves before they transcended physical existence. Supreme Logician Felnara leaned forward, her analytical mind struggling with concepts that defied logical framework. Define inheritor species. According to the preserved texts, an inheritor species is one that develops beyond the normal limitations of physical existence while retaining individual consciousness and cultural identity. Most species either remain bound by physical laws or transcend them by abandoning individual existence. The inheritors do both simultaneously. That's impossible, Felnara stated flatly. Is it? High Chancellor Mordun manipulated the chamber's display to show the real-time sensor data from Sol System. Because what we're observing suggests otherwise. The display showed human ships performing maneuvers that should have been impossible. Vessels the size of small moons accelerating to significant fractions of lightspeed with no detectable propulsion. Massive structures appearing and disappearing in different locations throughout the system. Energy patterns that suggested manipulation of spacetime itself. The humans are not just using advanced technology, Mordun continued. They are demonstrating mastery over fundamental forces that we consider immutable. They're not working within the laws of physics, they're rewriting them. A new voice joined the discussion from the Outer Rim territories. This is Commander Hexval of the Frontier Survey Corps. We've been monitoring the human exploration ships that appeared in our sector. High Chancellor, they're not just exploring. They're improving things. Explain. The humans found a dead system planet scorched by an ancient supernova, completely lifeless. In 12 hours, they restored the entire system. Rekindled the star, rebuilt the planets, established thriving ecosystems. When we asked them why, they said they didn't like looking at dead space. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Stellar engineering on that scale was purely theoretical even for the most advanced galactic civilizations. The energy requirements alone should have been impossible to achieve. There's more, Commander Hexval continued. They detected our monitoring ships and invited us to observe their work. Said they wanted us to understand that they weren't taking anything from anyone, they were creating new resources instead of competing for existing ones. War Master Kekthul's aggressive posture began to shift as the implications of this information settled in. They're creating resources instead of competing for them? Apparently, competition for resources is a limitation they've moved beyond. They can create whatever they need, matter, energy, space, even time. The concept of scarcity doesn't apply to them anymore. Ancient One Veltheri's voice carried a note of profound recognition. This matches the ancient elder texts precisely. The inheritor species was described as having the power to remake reality according to will, tempered by wisdom that chooses creation over destruction. But, what do they want? High Chancellor Mordun asked. Every species wants something. Territory, resources, power, security. What drives them? The answer came from an unexpected source. The chamber's communication array activated without any incoming signal, and the familiar voice of Admiral Sarachen filled the space. We want what we've always wanted, she said, apparently monitoring their discussion with ease. We want to learn, to grow, to explore, to understand. We want to see what's possible beyond the boundaries that currently define existence. We want to help others do the same if they're interested. The fact that humans could breach the security of the most protected facility in the galaxy without triggering any alarms sent another wave of unease through the assembled representatives. How are you monitoring this communication? Supreme Logician Felnara demanded. The same way we've been monitoring all galactic communications for the past 6 months, Admiral Chen replied. We needed to understand how your civilizations operated before we revealed ourselves. We wanted to make sure our approach wouldn't cause unnecessary panic or conflict. And, your conclusion? Mixed results. Some of your civilizations show genuine curiosity and willingness to adapt. Others. There was a pause. Others appear to be defaulting to fear and aggression despite clear evidence that such approaches would be counterproductive. War Master Kekthul rose to his full intimidating height. Are you threatening the Korth Empire, human? No, War Master. I'm offering the Korth Empire an opportunity to expand beyond current limitations. Your people value strength and conquest. We can show you forms of strength that don't require conquest, ways to achieve victory without opponents, challenges that don't involve defeating enemies. What kind of challenges? The kind the ancient elders faced when they reached this stage of development. How do you explore realities where normal concepts of space and time don't apply? How do you maintain individual consciousness while merging with cosmic forces? How do you preserve cultural identity while transcending physical limitations? How do you help younger species develop without interfering with their natural growth? The chamber fell silent as the scope of these questions settled over the assembled representatives. These weren't political challenges or military problems, they were fundamental questions about the nature of existence itself. Ancient One Valtheri spoke slowly, her ancient voice filled with awe. You're offering us the opportunity to follow the path of the ancient elders. To transcend current limitations while remaining ourselves. We're offering you the opportunity to choose your own path, Admiral Chen corrected. Transcendence is one option. There are others. Some species prefer to remain within familiar limitations while expanding their capabilities in other directions. Some choose to explore alternate realities without abandoning physical existence. Some develop in directions we haven't even imagined yet. And, if we choose not to accept your assistance? Then, you continue exactly as you are. We have no interest in forcing change on anyone. But, we also won't pretend to be something we're not anymore, and we won't accept limitations imposed by others' fears. High Chancellor Mordun felt the weight of history pressing down on the chamber. You're asking us to make a fundamental choice about the future of galactic civilization. Not asking, Chancellor. You're making that choice regardless of what we do. The question is whether you make it with knowledge of new possibilities or whether you make it based on assumptions that are no longer accurate. The display in the center of the chamber shifted to show real-time images of human activities throughout the galaxy. In system after system, human ships were engaged in projects of staggering scope. Dead worlds blooming with new life. Failed stars being rekindled. Space itself being restructured to create more efficient travel routes between distant systems. What you're seeing, Admiral Chen explained, is humanity expressing our nature without the constraints we've accepted for the past century. This is what we do when we're not hiding our capabilities. We create, we explore, we improve, we help. It's not directed at anyone or intended to prove anything, it's simply who we are. War Master Kekthul stared at the display showing human ships effortlessly moving massive stellar objects to create more stable orbital patterns in a previously chaotic system. The military applications of this technology. There are no military applications, War Master. When you can create anything you need, when you can exist in multiple realities simultaneously, when you can manipulate the fundamental forces of existence itself, the concept of warfare becomes meaningless. You can't fight someone who can simply relocate your entire civilization to a custom-designed reality where whatever you're fighting about no longer matters. You could relocate entire civilizations? The ancient elders did it regularly. It was considered the most humane response to irreconcilable conflicts. Rather than allowing destructive wars, they would create perfect environments for each conflicting party and allow them to develop separately. Supreme Logician Felnara's analytical mind latched onto the implications. You're saying that warfare itself is a limitation that can be transcended? Most limitations can be transcended once you understand that they're limitations rather than immutable laws. The question is whether you want to transcend them or whether you prefer to work within them. The chamber fell into a profound silence as every representative contemplated the choice that humanity was presenting. Accept a fundamental transformation of everything they understood about existence, or continue as they were while sharing the galaxy with beings who operated on principles beyond their comprehension. Ancient One Valtheri broke the silence with a question that carried the weight of 3 millennia of accumulated wisdom. If we choose to learn from you, What would that require? Only what every species requires for growth, Admiral Chan replied. Curiosity, patience, and the willingness to question assumptions you've never thought to question. As the Council of Galactic Civilizations prepared to make the most important decision in galactic history, one thing had become absolutely clear: the ancient warnings had been true. Humanity was awakening, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the emergency council, the galaxy had split into 3 distinct groups, each taking radically different approaches to humanity's awakening. The first group, led by the Zephyrian oracle ships and, surprisingly joined by the analytical Vorth Parliament, had embraced what they called collaborative transcendence. Their representatives worked directly with human mentors to explore possibilities beyond traditional limitations. The changes in their territories were visible from across the galaxy. Commander Vexhai, now serving as a liaison officer aboard the human ship Infinite Curiosity, watched in amazement as the joint Zephyrian human expedition prepared to explore what the humans casually referred to as adjacent reality layers. The ship itself defied every principle of engineering he had learned in 40 years of military service. It existed simultaneously in multiple dimensions, its interior space far larger than its exterior dimensions should have allowed. It's still difficult to comprehend, Vexhai admitted to Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human physicist who had been assigned to help him understand their collaborative projects. Your people speak of fundamental reality as if it's merely a starting point rather than a fixed framework. Dr. Vasquez smiled as she manipulated holographic displays that showed mathematical concepts that had no equivalent in traditional Zorth science. That's exactly what it is, Commander. Reality is incredibly malleable once you understand the underlying principles. The mistake most species make is assuming that the limitations they observe are inherent properties of existence rather than simply the boundaries of their current understanding. Through the ship's viewing ports, Vexhai could see the result of 6 months of Zephyrian human collaboration. The ancient Zephyrian homeworld of Velthurin, which had been slowly dying as its sun entered its final stages, was now orbiting a completely new star system. Not relocated, the entire world had been quantum-linked to a younger, more stable star while maintaining its original position in space relative to other Zephyrian colonies. 2 different locations simultaneously, Vexhai murmured. The mathematics should be impossible. Only if you assume that location is singular, Dr. Vasquez replied. But, quantum mechanics has been telling us for centuries that particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. We just scaled up the principle and applied it to macroscopic objects. What was even more remarkable was the change in the Zephyrian people themselves. Ancient One Velthari, who had lived for 3,000 years as a preserved consciousness within her ship, had been given the choice to return to physical existence using technology that reconstructed her body at the quantum level while preserving every aspect of her accumulated consciousness and memory. The implications for consciousness studies alone. Vexhai shook his head. Your people have solved questions that our greatest philosophers have debated for millennia. We've solved some questions and discovered thousands of new ones, Dr. Vasquez corrected. That's the beauty of transcendent development. Each answer reveals entire new categories of questions you never thought to ask. The second group had chosen what they called enhanced stability. Led by the Kalari Confederacy and joined by several other major civilizations, they had requested human assistance in improving their existing technologies and expanding their capabilities while remaining within familiar frameworks. In the Kalari crystal cities of Morthak Prime, High Chancellor Mordun stood in his transformed council chambers, marveling at the changes that human collaboration had brought to his people. The chamber itself was a work of art that would have been impossible using traditional technology, crystalline structures that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously, creating displays and interfaces that responded to thought as readily as to physical interaction. The efficiency improvements are beyond our most optimistic projections, reported Chief Engineer Kelshawn, her crystalline form now enhanced with quantum resonance patterns that allowed direct interface with the city's systems. Energy consumption is down 97% while computational capacity has increased by factors we don't have numbers for. And, the humans insist this is just the beginning of what's possible within our chosen parameters. What impressed Mordun most was that the humans had carefully respected Kalari cultural values throughout the enhancement process. Rather than imposing alien concepts, they had found ways to amplify existing Kalari strengths, their natural resonance with crystalline structures, their holistic approach to information processing, their deep integration between individual and collective consciousness. They could have given us transcendent capabilities, more done observed. The same reality manipulation technology they offered the Zephyrians. Yet they accepted our preference for enhanced rather than transformed existence. According to the human advisors, Kelshawn replied, transcendence is only valuable if it aligns with a species' nature and desires. Forcing inappropriate development paths creates instability and, ultimately, fails to achieve lasting improvement. The results spoke for themselves. Kalari territories were now models of efficiency and harmony that far exceeded anything achieved by traditional galactic civilizations, yet they remained recognizably Kalari. Their crystal cities resonated with frequencies that promoted both individual creativity and collective wisdom. Their space installations existed in perfect harmony with local gravitational fields and energy patterns. Their exploration ships moved through space like living things, adapting to conditions rather than imposing artificial control over their environment. But the third group had chosen a very different path. In the military shipyards of the Korth Empire, War Master Kekthul stood before the assembled warchiefs of his people, his 6 arms gesturing at tactical displays that showed the most ambitious military buildup in galactic history. For 6 months, we have observed these humans corrupting our galaxy with their unnatural technologies, he declared, his voice carrying the rage that had been building since humanity's revelation. They claim peaceful intentions while demonstrating the power to relocate entire civilizations. They speak of transcendence while undermining the natural order that has governed the galaxy for millions of years. Around him, the warchiefs of a dozen Korth clans nodded their agreement. The Korth had built their civilization on principles of strength, honor, and the natural supremacy of those who could claim victory in direct combat. The idea that these principles were simply limitations to be transcended struck at the very core of their identity. The humans offer to help us transcend warfare itself, Warchief Gekinael snarled. They insult our greatest virtue and call it assistance. They claim that competition for resources is unnecessary because they can create unlimited resources, added Warchief Fulkek. But what is existence without struggle? What is victory without the possibility of defeat? They would make us into their pets, comfortable and useless. Kekthul manipulated the tactical displays to show the preparations that had consumed the Empire's resources for the past 6 months. Every shipyard in Korth space was working at maximum capacity, producing vessels designed according to theoretical principles that pushed traditional technology to its absolute limits. They had reverse-engineered every piece of human technology they could analyze, incorporated every exotic physics principle their scientists could understand, and created weapons systems that operated on the very edge of what conventional science considered possible. We cannot match their reality manipulation capabilities, Kekthul admitted. But we can force them to respond with similar capabilities. We can make them choose between allowing us to strike them or revealing the true extent of their power. And if they relocate us to another galaxy as they did the extinct civilizations, asked Warchief Velmor, the only member of the assembly to express doubt about their course. Then, we will fight our way back, Kekthul replied without hesitation. And we will keep fighting until they admit that some things cannot be transcended, that some conflicts cannot be resolved through superior technology. The strategic plan was elegantly simple in its brutality. Simultaneous attacks on human installations in 47 different systems, using weapons designed to exploit every theoretical weakness in exotic matter and dimensional manipulation technology. Not to destroy the humans, the Korth military analysts admitted that was probably impossible, but to force them into a conventional military response that would prove that transcendence was simply another form of warfare. The humans believe they have moved beyond conflict, Kekthul declared. We will prove that conflict is the fundamental nature of existence. We will show the galaxy that their transcendent philosophy is nothing more than an attempt to avoid the honest struggle that defines all life. But the Korth were not the only ones preparing for conflict. In the deep space between galaxies, Admiral Sarachen stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced command vessel, the Reality's Edge, reviewing reports from human monitoring stations throughout the local galactic cluster. Around her, the ship's crew worked with equipment that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously and could process information faster than light could travel. Korth military preparations are proceeding exactly as predicted, reported Commander James Park, humanity's liaison with what they called the Development Analysis Division. full mobilization of their empire, weapons systems that push conventional physics to theoretical limits, coordination with 12 other species that have chosen confrontational approaches. Admiral Chen nodded as she reviewed the tactical projections. The humans had been monitoring Korth preparations since they began, tracking every development with technology that made traditional surveillance methods look like cave paintings. Assessment of their chances of achieving their stated objectives? 0% chance of forcing us into conventional military response, Commander Park replied. Approximately 15% chance of causing significant damage to enhanced development civilizations that lack our defensive capabilities. 98% chance of forcing us to implement containment protocols. Time frame for containment preparation? Complete preparation in 73 hours if we use minimal impact methods. 18 hours if we accept moderate impact implementation. 4 hours if we authorize maximum impact protocols. Admiral Chen closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of decisions that would affect entire civilizations. The humans had hoped that all galactic species would choose cooperation or enhanced development. They had prepared for the possibility that some would choose conflict instead. The ancient texts from other galaxies describe similar patterns, she said quietly. Most species choose growth when offered the opportunity. Some prefer stability with enhancement. And some choose conflict because they cannot accept that their current limitations are not universal laws. Orders, Admiral? Begin implementation of minimal impact containment protocols. Full isolation barriers around all aggressive coalition territories. Temporal acceleration fields to allow them to experience the full development of their chosen path without affecting anyone else. They'll be completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy? Not cut off. Relocated. They'll have an entire galaxy to themselves, perfectly designed to support their preferred style of existence. Unlimited resources to fight over, suitable enemies to battle, constant challenges to overcome. Everything they value, without any risk to civilizations that have chosen different paths. The decision had been made with the kind of certainty that came from having access to the experiences of dozens of previous inheritor species across multiple galaxies. There was no anger, no judgment, no desire for revenge. Simply the recognition that some philosophical approaches were incompatible, and that forced coexistence led to suffering for everyone involved. As the reality's edge began implementing protocols that would fundamentally restructure local spacetime to accommodate irreconcilable differences in developmental philosophy, Admiral Chen felt a moment of sadness for the civilizations that had chosen conflict over growth. The ancient texts had been clear, this choice was always offered, and some species always made the same decision. The galaxy was large enough for different approaches to existence, but not in the same spacetime framework. In 73 hours, the Korth Empire and their allies would find themselves in a reality perfectly suited to their values and desires. They would have their eternal war, their glorious struggles, their constant competition for resources and territory. And the rest of the galaxy would continue its journey toward transcendence without the burden of irreconcilable conflict. The ancient elders had been right about everything, including the necessity of difficult choices. 1 year after humanity's awakening, the galaxy bore little resemblance to the carefully ordered territories that had defined galactic civilization for millennia. In the transformed space that had once been purely the domain of conventional physics, new forms of existence flowered like gardens planted in dimensions that previously existed only in theoretical mathematics. The collaboration between humanity and the species that had chosen transcendent development had produced wonders that defied traditional understanding of what was possible. Commander HFY, now serving as the first Zorth member of the Interdimensional Exploration Corps, stood on a platform that existed simultaneously in 47 different reality layers, observing the construction of what human engineers called a reality anchor, a structure designed to connect multiple universes in a stable configuration that allowed exploration of infinite possibilities while maintaining clear paths home. Around him, beings that had once been limited to single physical forms now moved through existence as entities of pure consciousness, living mathematics, and crystallized possibility. Yet they retained their essential identities, their cultural values, and their individual perspectives, proving that transcendence didn't require the abandonment of self that so many species had feared. The sensor readings are still incredible to me, HFY reported to his old commander, Admiral Gorth Van, who had chosen to remain in enhanced traditional form while serving as a liaison between transcendent and conventional civilizations. We're detecting 17 different types of reality in this region alone. Some with different physical laws, some with altered temporal structures, some with forms of existence that don't translate into any language we know. And the humans navigate all of this as easily as we once traveled between star systems, Admiral Gorthvan replied, through quantum communication arrays that operated faster than the speed of thought. More importantly, they're teaching everyone else to do the same. Through the reality anchor's viewing systems, HFY could observe human Zephyrian teams exploring universes where consciousness was the primary form of matter, where thoughts became living beings, and where every emotion generated new forms of existence. In one reality layer, human-Vorth collaboration had established research stations in universes where mathematics itself was alive and participated in its own study. Dr. Vasquez was right, HFY mused. Each answer really does reveal thousands of new questions. I've been exploring transcendent reality for a full year, and I feel like I understand less about existence now than I did when I was limited to conventional physics. But you understand different things, Admiral Gorthvan pointed out. According to the reports I'm receiving, you and your exploration teams have discovered 43 new forms of consciousness, 15 previously unknown types of energy, and mathematical principles that are revolutionizing our understanding of fundamental reality. All while remaining essentially Zorth, HFY confirmed. That was the most surprising discovery. I expected transcendence to fundamentally change who I am. Instead, it's revealed aspects of who I am that I never knew existed. Meanwhile, in the regions of space that had chosen enhanced stability, civilizations were experiencing their own forms of revolution. The Kalari crystal cities now span multiple star systems connected by quantum resonance networks that allowed instantaneous communication and resource sharing across thousands of light years. Their artistic achievements had evolved beyond anything previously imagined, creating works that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously and told stories that unfolded across centuries. High Chancellor Mordun, his crystalline form now enhanced with quantum processing capabilities that allowed him to think at near light speed while maintaining perfect emotional balance, addressed the Galactic Council of Enhanced Civilizations from the new capital of unified Kalari space. The transformation has exceeded our most optimistic projections, he reported to representatives of 37 species that had chosen the enhancement path. We've eliminated resource scarcity, achieved perfect ecological balance across 43 worlds, and developed cultural expressions that were previously impossible. More importantly, we've done this while remaining recognizably ourselves. The council chambers themselves demonstrated the success of human-assisted enhancement. The space existed in perfect harmony with local gravitational fields, creating environments that naturally promoted both individual creativity and collective wisdom. Representatives from different species found their natural abilities amplified and supported rather than constrained by artificial compromises. The humans delivered exactly what they promised, observed Speaker Telvar of the Enhanced Yenari Assembly. Improvement without transformation, growth without loss of identity, transcendence of limitations without abandonment of core values. What's perhaps most remarkable, added Coordinator Pashtel of the Velka Engineering Guild, is that they've continued to respect our choice to remain within enhanced conventional reality. They offer opportunities to explore transcendent capabilities, but they never pressure us to accept them. This had been one of the greatest surprises of the post-awakening galaxy. Despite possessing capabilities that bordered on omnipotence, humanity had shown perfect respect for other species' chosen paths. Those who wanted to transcend conventional reality were given every possible assistance. Those who preferred enhanced stability were supported in achieving their goals within their chosen parameters. Even those who had chosen conflict. The thought brought the Council's attention to the great question that had haunted galactic civilization for the past year: what had happened to the Korth Empire and their allies? The answer came from an unexpected source. The Council Chamber's communication arrays activated, carrying the voice of Warmaster Kekthul himself. Enhanced beings of the primary galaxy, he said, his tone carrying none of the rage that had characterized his previous communications. I address you from the galaxy that has become our eternal battlefield, our perfect arena of endless conflict. The transmission included visual data that astonished even the enhanced civilizations. The Korth and their allies had been relocated to a galaxy specifically designed to support their preferred form of existence. Unlimited resources to fight over, perfectly balanced enemy civilizations, constant challenges that tested their strength and tactical abilities without ever reaching the point of total destruction. The humans gave us exactly what we demanded, Kekthul continued. Eternal war without the complications of dealing with species that find conflict distasteful. Perfect enemies that match our capabilities exactly. Glorious battles that never end in ultimate victory or defeat because both outcomes would terminate the eternal struggle we value above all else. Are you satisfied with this arrangement? High Chancellor Mordun asked. Satisfied? Kekthul's laughter rumbled across the communication link. This is paradise. Every day brings new challenges, new opportunities to prove our strength, new battles to test our honor. The humans understood us better than we understood ourselves. They gave us not peace, but perfect war. And if you change your minds? If you decide you want to rejoin the primary galaxy? The pathway remains open, Kekthul replied. The humans made it clear that our relocation was based on our choice, not their judgment. If we ever choose cooperation over conflict, we can return immediately. But why would we abandon paradise for compromise? The transmission ended, leaving the council in thoughtful silence. Even those who had disagreed with the Korth's approach could appreciate the elegance of the solution. Rather than destroying aggressive civilizations or forcing them to change their nature, humanity had provided them with perfect environments for expressing their preferred values. In the depths of space between galaxies, Admiral Sarah Chen reviewed the first annual report on what humanity had begun calling the Galactic Diversity Project. The results were better than their most optimistic projections. 43 species have chosen collaborative transcendence and are exploring reality layers beyond conventional physics, reported Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Director of Transcendence Studies. 37 species have chosen enhanced stability and are achieving unprecedented prosperity within augmented conventional reality. 12 species have chosen various forms of isolation or minimal contact, and were respecting those choices completely. And the aggressive coalition? Thriving in their custom-designed conflict galaxy. They're experiencing the eternal struggle they value, with perfectly balanced opposition and unlimited resources to fight over. According to their own reports, they've never been happier. Admiral Chen nodded as she reviewed data streams that encompassed the activities of thousands of civilizations across multiple galaxies and reality layers. Any regrets about our revelation? Any indication that we should have remained hidden longer? None whatsoever, Dr. Vasquez replied firmly. The diversity of chosen paths has validated our approach completely. Rather than imposing a single model of development, we've enabled each species to pursue its own version of optimal existence. Challenges or problems? Only the good kind. Transcendent civilizations are discovering forms of existence we never imagined. Enhanced civilizations are achieving things that were impossible under conventional limitations. Even the conflict civilizations are developing in ways that surprise us. Everyone is becoming more themselves rather than less. Admiral Chen smiled as she looked through the reality's edges viewing systems at the transformed galaxy around them. Streams of consciousness moved between dimensions like rivers of living light. Enhanced civilizations built wonders that spanned multiple star systems. Ancient species that had been locked in stagnation for millennia were experiencing renaissance periods that generated new art, science, and philosophy. The ancient elders were right about everything, she mused. Including their prediction that transcendence leads to infinite diversity rather than homogenization. What's our next phase? According to the ancient texts, we're ready to begin the great exploration. Now that our home galaxy has achieved stable diversity, we can turn our attention to the larger universe. 47 galaxies are just the beginning. The scope of what humanity was contemplating dwarfed even the transformations they had already achieved. The ancient elders had left records suggesting that reality contained infinite variations, universes with completely different forms of consciousness, galaxies where the fundamental forces operated according to alien principles, dimensions where existence itself took forms that current science couldn't even hypothesize. Time frame for expansion? We're not expanding, Admiral Chen corrected. We're exploring. The difference is crucial. We're not seeking to control or transform other realities, we're seeking to understand them and learn from them. Every form of existence we encounter will teach us something new about the nature of possibility itself. As humanity prepared for its next phase of development, the galaxy they left behind continued to flourish in ways that would have been impossible under the old limitations. Species that had been locked in territorial conflicts for millennia now collaborated on projects that spanned multiple realities. Ancient enemies discovered they had more in common than they had differences when freed from competition for scarce resources. And, in the archives of every world, the warnings of the ancient elders were finally read with the understanding they deserved. When the young species awakens, when they step beyond their limitations and remember their true nature, do not fear them. They are not conquerors but gardeners. They do not seek to impose their will but to nurture infinite diversity. They are the bridge between what is and what could be, the inheritors of possibility itself. The ancient elders spoke truly. Humans are invincible, not because they cannot be defeated, but because they choose victory through creation rather than destruction, through growth rather than conquest, through infinite patience rather than force. When they arrive in your reality, celebrate. For they bring not the end of your story, but the beginning of every story you never dared to dream. The warnings had been preserved for 3,000 years, waiting for the moment when they would finally be understood not as threats, but as promises. Humanity was awake, and the universe would never run out of wonders to discover.